You're watching the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. I'm Carson Poppenger. I'm here joined with Jacob Thorpe, our SVP of Client Services, and we have a special guest today with us, Austin Walters from SpringTide Ventures. Thanks for being here with us today, Austin.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And would you mind giving us like a little background on SpringTide and what you've been doing?
Sure, yeah. So I founded SpringTide in 2018 to fund the future of health. And we do that by leading seed financings for early stage health tech ventures that represent the future of health. So we think about health as much broader than the traditional healthcare industry, which is really a sick care industry that's reactive and very, very good, by the way, at what it does. But health is much broader than that. It involves preventive care. It involves managing chronic conditions well. And so we've backed companies like Trumi that makes safe smartphones for kids. Has little to do with hospitals, right? But it's a mental health opportunity to provide care. And so we've backed 40 ventures since 2018. And in leading the rounds, that typically means that we set valuations with management after doing a very thorough due diligence and typically join the boards as part of structuring those financings. And so we set the companies up, hopefully on a strong foundation of capitalization and governance, and sets them up for success in the future.
Yeah, Trumi, I think that's one that's all close to, we all have children and kids that are growing up today that have cell phones and social media. And, especially recently, we've seen some of the negatives that are going on in our society, and how social media can sort of be a cancer and hard for us, even adults, to understand when we see things come through on our phones within minutes of them happening, graphic things, and then discussions around that are very, we've talked about, how
it's close to home right now.
Yeah,
right?
It's really close to home. And, with your product Trumi that you guys are pushing forward with kids to keep them safe with cell phones, it's like they don't want to be the weird kid with like no phone or a phone that looks funny or something like that. Putting a real iPhone or a smartphone in their hand, like a Samsung phone. I think you guys have Samsung phones, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
So Trumi has a proprietary operating system that is modular, so you can place it onto a piece of hardware agnostically. I mean, you can't do it with an Apple phone, right? Because Apple's so integrated as a company. But the more open architecture devices you can. So the phones are now at this point in the business's life cycle, they're being provided by carriers. So the carriers themselves are just giving the phones because they want to be contracted with for the Trumi. And Trumi's business model is they just charge a subscription based on the number of lines or the number of phones that are being used by a family. So if you have one child, it'd be one, or they even have some adult customers that are using these. And what's special about the operating system and the modular architecture of the software is they can license it out very easily. And so they're entering into a contract with another very large carrier that's going to be just use it as a matter of course across all their devices. So lots of a growth opportunity. The company was doing a few million in revenue when we led their seed financing. A few years ago, they just broke about 10 million annual revenue. So they're growing healthily. And well, they also have developed a AI chatbot named Trudy that can detect, our phones know a lot about us. And the way we interact with them haptically, how often we look at them, what we're looking at, et cetera, says a lot about us. And there are even, banks in China, for example, that just skipped the shoe leather cost brick and mortar banking industry altogether. And you know how they assign creditworthiness? A person's cell phone data only, right? And it's far more accurate. Then if you think about like the things we measure, right, and like Equifax, right, to try and get a credit score, they're pretty basic, right? Your phones capture a lot. So sometimes you can see when a child is at risk for suicidal ideation or other behavioral health challenges, and you can have an intervention off of a chatbot as a first line intervention. I'm particularly excited about the potential to layer on just in time actual therapy as well. So if they need something more than an AI chatbot, ask them how they're doing, a real human, you could pull that in right away, right? Yeah. And I just think the company's set up to do amazing things. And I think, we've gotten smart to how dangerous these devices are, not just for kids, but especially for kids. Yeah. Right? They're dangerous. They're actually quite dangerous for all of us, but you really want to protect kids.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's brilliant.
We have sort of it goes along the lines of like how we're using our phones and the things we do. And you say like behavioral and things like as a funny joke. It's not funny, but we're like, if we run into sort of an odd character, sometimes we'll be like, I wonder what their ChatGPT log is like or whatever. What kind of things are they asking ChatGPT?
Yeah.
And so kind of a funny, but you're also involved in some. This week, I think you had an announcement about a Time recognized the world's top health tech companies, and one of your companies, OpenLoop, was recognized as one of the top health tech companies in the world. Yeah, let's talk about OpenLoop. What's going on with that, and how's that come together?
Hey, you're throwing me softballs here, Carson. Yeah. I love talking about OpenLoop. This is a company based in Des Moines, Iowa, that set out to, it's founded by he's a great founder. His name's John Lensing, and a young fellow, maybe just over 30 now. And he finished medical school. While he was in medical school, he actually had a drone venture that he sold off, built a drone venture. Who does that in medical school, right? Right. So he gets his medical degree. And instead of going to practice medicine, he decided to stand up another venture, which is OpenLoop. And it's based in Des Moines, Iowa. And his initial vision, the team's initial vision was to bring primary care to rural America. So if you think about traditional healthcare, you have brick and mortar general hospitals, and not dissimilar from K through 12 education. In the early 20th century, the federal government just decided, hey, we're gonna scale this, and it's sort of as a matter of policy. And so the healthcare industry is quasi-governmental in a lot of ways, the way it's paid for, et cetera. So there's a lot of infrastructure there and inefficiency. There are also now quite a few access issues, right? Even in kind of our relatively free market system, we don't have the same kind of queuing issues as they have in Canada or many European countries for certain things, but the wait times have gotten longer and longer. It's harder to get in. So what that means from an opportunity perspective is, 80% of the fundamental demand that might exist out there for healthcare in various forms probably is not being met at all. People just don't go in until something really hurts.
Yeah.
So there's, if you think about that from an entrepreneur perspective, there's a huge amount of opportunity if you can figure out how to make things more accessible.
Well, and the health plans want to prevent issues before they become big issues. So by the time something is hurting, or by the time you notice something wrong with your body or with the way that you're feeling, that problem has gotten larger and larger, which I think is a great metaphor for life in general, right? Oftentimes, if you don't solve a problem while it's small and take care of it early, that problem can metastasize and get much bigger and much harder to take care of. So the healthcare providers or the payers have an incentive to offer that preventative care before it becomes a larger issue.
Yeah. And that's one of the trends that's been happening is, payers, whoever they are, whether self-insured employers or traditional payers, are incentivized to care preventively. To a degree. You had legislation during the pandemic that paid for remote care services across state lines, which traditionally was not the case, which created another opening. You have the rise of GLP-1 medications, which are very effective for weight loss, for instance. You have other technologies come online that have allowed for very clear real-time communication and other information technologies that help with that.
Direct-to-home delivery services and
consumerism.
The supply chain is very different now than it was even 10 years ago.
Internet of Medical Things, all sorts of devices and sensors that can capture data continuously, that can be stored in the cloud and so on. So in a way, it's had the effect of reducing physical barriers to access. So all of this come together. So OpenLoop, what they do is they provide infrastructure for virtual care. And you heard the old saying that in a gold rush, sell picks and shovels, right? That's exactly what they're doing. So they sell the picks and shovels that power the virtualization of care.
Business platform for those providers to use.
So their picks and shovels are, in the first place, most importantly, 25,000 clinicians that are fractionalized, right? So that's a huge, pretty massive new supply of labor, right? Really valuable. And they've got a long way to go there, but that's big. They do the credentialing of those providers. They do the billing and revenue cycle management for all the.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That piece is huge.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of clinicians that stick with whatever practice they're at because they're not always business people.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they're
not sure to run all the back office stuff.
Taking the
exactly.
risk on
It's
being
huge.
paid, right?
Yep.
And then they also secured coverage with all the almost all the payers, right, in all the states for all virtual care. So that aggregation of coverage is a big deal because a lot of the insurance companies don't want to deal with the many thousands of new digital health providers. Legally speaking, each of those is a little Intermountain Healthcare, right? And so think about that. It's overwhelming. And you go, so OpenLoop basically aggregated all of these things, and on a white labeled basis, they provide for the ability to stand up a telemedicine practice turnkey. You don't have to worry about anything other than winning the contracts, right, to care for a population. So the business, when we led their seed financing in 2022, was doing a couple million in revenue, and we joined the board. We're still on the board of the company. We're one of two venture firms that has backed them. Another came in the Series A year later. And we did that deal at a $32 million post-money valuation. OpenLoop is now generating over $1 billion in annual revenue, 70% gross margins. Were valued earlier this year at $1.4 billion post-money. And they're
tech valuation, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting ready to raise their next round, which would be a Series C financing, and we think that'll be at around $5 billion, just given the margins and their revenue growth. So I think when they signed the term sheet for their Series B at a 1.4 post, they were doing $300 million in revenue. So they've grown 3x.
That's incredible growth.
Yeah,
it's been pretty awesome. Yeah,
filling a definite need in the healthcare space, and so that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the healthcare space, and we do a lot of work in the healthcare space. You're seeing, you mentioned brick and mortar clinics, and you go in and you wait for a doctor, and they give you, you go to your primary care physician, and then your primary care physician says, "Hey, I need this specialist to look at you," and this specialist says, "Hey, I need this specialist to look at you." And each of those steps, depending on the urgency, obviously, can take a lot of time, or things can fall out. If you look at like the patient experience, like a lead funnel, there's a lot of places in that lead funnel where that lead is changing hands, and there's opportunities for inefficiencies, bad customer experiences, and you might not click with the first clinician or physician that you speak with. You might need a different opinion, and just so much can get lost in the shuffle, both from a customer perspective or a patient perspective. But there's a lot of opportunity that these companies that haven't captured that patient experience well, or they're not executing a positive, they're not recognizing the importance of that patient experience. They lose out on a lot of opportunity too. And now you're seeing that a lot of these you're seeing a lot of companies start, it's more fractionalized. Companies are starting telehealth, or they're starting in-home visits, or they're recognizing this opportunity to kind of disrupt the industry as it's been for the past 75 years, and there's a new kind of niche that's opening up, and it's there for the taking. But it's consumer direct. It's no longer something that you kind of just go and do, and you go to your doctor and that's what it is. No, you're now competing for business because of the way that these companies are set up, just like Open Loop.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we saw with baby boomer generation, I saw this with my own family, when there's healthcare concerns and needs and things, they're really just not sure. They just sort of show up at the doctor and it's like, fix my problem. There's really no like self-management or, the preventative care is not there. It's like a break fix type, scenario. And a lot of times they're just sort of like, tell me what to do. And the doctors, the specialists that are working with them are specialized and they know about, specific things, but they don't know about the whole picture and their whole health, situation and things. And so
one of the challenges there, Carson, is it can be very challenging intellectually, clinically, right?
Yeah.
To get to the bottom of things and manage patients. It's complex. But I actually think a really big challenge that goes underappreciated is liability. So the liability and malpractice premiums in healthcare are already very, very high. If you drive, I took a road trip in January from Wyoming down to San Diego and then up the West Coast and then over through Portland back home. Vegas has hundreds, I think,
personal injury.
And they're all over
billboards.
They're
I couldn't
all over.
believe it.
Yeah.
I don't even know why, other than maybe like people get hurt in Vegas. Poor
judgment.
Go to Vegas,
The same
get
thing.
messed up and getting crashed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a massive industry basically ready to prey, in my view,
On mistakes.
It's predatory. Yeah.
And you know what this does? It just adds cost
Yeah.
to the system. Now there's maybe, there's a protection aspect to it too.
Sure.
But many clinicians are so worried about sort of holding the potato that they refer. And it goes to a specialist, and then a specialist sometimes will also refer to an even more specialized specialist. See?
Or even within their clinics,
Yeah.
even within doctors within the same clinic,
Yeah.
you'll see patients being exchanged.
It really prevents the doctors too, from what I've heard from friends of mine that are in healthcare, who are I've got a friend that's a neighbor who's a surgeon, and he wants to be entrepreneurial, but then there's like these things that prevent. It's like I'm just an employee of the hospital, is sort of, and they don't like that dynamic. They want to be able to be entrepreneurial and solve problems and things like that. But then
the hospital has all of that.
But they don't want to deal with insurance and malpractice premiums.
That infrastructure that you were talking about. I went to medical school. I didn't go to business school. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah. Really interesting.
It's going to be interesting to see, from our perspective, from where we're sitting, we see such a huge opportunity with a lot of these healthcare companies because they're providing a service that's so valuable and so needed and so exciting. But the piece that many of these companies have not quite figured out is that customer acquisition strategy. How are they going to leverage the patient relationships with the payers and the unique standards that payer has when there's 50 different payers and hundreds of thousands of patients within these payers, and each has those very unique characteristics? How are we going to acquire customers to utilize our service and to service? And that's
scale, probably reach the scale that they have potential with, the market either regionally or nationally, right?
And something that I've seen is a lot of these companies, they come from very, very, very smart people, like, like Harvard and MIT and just these brilliant people.
Austin's a Harvard guy.
Yeah, that's true. I was an affirmative action admit from Wyoming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's funny. But what I found is a lot of these people understand all of these business theories, but their ability to execute on those theories can be lacking a little bit sometimes too, that they don't always have the sales know-how, even though they've got that great idea. How do we execute on this? So what is it that you've found with these companies that you take them from nascency to, world-renowned, you could say? What is it that sets those companies apart when they've got a clear strategy from vision to execution? What is it that bridges that gap?
That's a great question. As a lead investor, we put together pretty involved due diligence memos that really try and comprehensively look at every material aspect of the business that we can get our hands on to do due diligence, right? To make sure that what's being represented by management is true, and to form our own conviction and theory on reality as well, right? So you're triangulating, you're looking at the tech, you're looking at the strategy, you're looking at their unit economics, you're looking at their finances, you're looking at kind of objective reality, making sure that what management tells you is true. Or these people you can trust. You're spending time with them, right? You're developing a relationship. If I had to boil it down to say like the 3 things that seem most important to me, far and away, number 1 is what we call a cheetah CEO. And this is a particular kind of leader that has the ability to, Steve Jobs' engineers over the years called this a reality distortion field. In his case, it doesn't always look the same way exactly, but he had this charisma and this leadership ability. A lot of academics have tried to put their finger on what exactly leadership is. It's hard to do, actually, but it's real.
It's like emotional intelligence. It's sound decision making. It's like, what is it?
You should write a book. Maybe you just solved it.
Yeah.
It's,
what is it?
Exactly. It's
how do you quantify
all of those things.
But you know when
right?
you see it, but you're not quite sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got it.
It's the it factor.
And part of that assessment of, okay, who's leading this company? And these are small companies that we're backing, right? So the founder is really, really, really important.
How large are the teams on average?
Oh, at the seed stage, they can range from, 5 to 20, something like that, maybe.
And the assumption is that that's the team that's going to be growing it.
That's
so you're
right.
You're investing in the team and in the people.
But you're investing in the leader.
In the leader, yep.
More even than the team. But
the leader is the one that's leading the team.
It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And we found cheetah CEOs are those that move very, very fast. They're, honest, but they drive results. And in a commercial sense, they're very, very effective. They bring in money, both from a capital raising perspective and also a sales perspective, right? The best source of capital is customers. Right. So now some of our investments are deep tech applications that are far from revenue, right? Because they're in kind of fundamental engineering or science mode. And, you see different skill sets, but I think even in those areas, a lot of the really, really successful scientists, guess what? They have tremendous leadership qualities too. So I think it's something that carries through. Different kinds of organizations.
So you're looking for specific leadership qualities to get behind and know that like your investment will be taken care of and in return, get the returns that you need and want. So
that's right.
They're stewards, right? And so you need to have a level of comfort.
The dynamic with them is honestly, it's one where you feel like they're not going to need you. And that's the founder you want to back.
Yeah.
It can be tempting in our business to actually partner with founders where you do feel needed. Everyone wants to be needed, right? You feel like you can help the company. You have certain skills, you have experiences, you can impart your wisdom, you could make introductions, you could do things. That feels good personally, may not be the best investment performance.
Right.
The best investment performance is likely associated with a cheetah founder who frankly doesn't need you. Whether you invest or not, they're going to succeed in raising a round, and they're going to drive business.
Find ways to get it
They'll
done.
figure it out.
Yep. I guess one other I'd mention, I know we've kind of been on this topic for maybe too long, but let me mention one other, which is vertical integration. And I think we're really interested in businesses that have multi-billion-dollar potential. And what that often means is that they're vertically integrating to effectively reinvent a slice of healthcare as informed by new technology or regulatory shifts or both, right? So there's a good example of this is a company from our Fund 1 portfolio called Pathology Watch. They were acquired last year by the third largest lab company in the world, Sonic Care. But they reinvented dermatopathology off of a foundation of AI. So they trained algorithms to detect cancer in images of skin biopsy slides. But to bring that to life, they had to acquire labs, and they AI-ified the labs, and they built a lot of lab management system software and annotation software. But the end result was that in their home state, 80% of the skin biopsy volume flipped to them. Once they did it, it took them a few years to kind of string all that together. Lower margin business, right? Operating labs. So what? I mean, 80% of the volume flipped to them from Quest and LabCorp and the academic medical centers, which had been managing that before, because they just created a better dermatopathology solution, end to end, no questions, like better.
The amount of data they were able to consolidate through all those biopsies and everything, gave them a tremendous amount of data, I'm sure, and intelligence that they were able to gather from that. So
yeah. So a broader vision, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can find like a point solution type investment opportunity. In our view, those usually aren't as defensible or interesting from an upside perspective.
Yeah, interesting.
So
when we had lunch a few weeks ago, we got together and we were talking a little bit about your background in Boston and some of the tech scene there and all the really smart, entrepreneurs and tech minds that are in Boston. And we talked about, we're in Utah and the sales culture here and the sales ability. And, do you want to talk about that for a minute and some of your experience?
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad that stood out to you. It's been a kind of a pet theory of mine for a while, within the US and globally too. And I'll tell you where my insight started on this. So when I moved out to Boston for grad school in 2009, I got to know a professor at Harvard Business School named Clay Christensen. And he's famous for developing disruptive innovation theory, and I was very fortunate to work with him within his firm InnoSight for a couple of years, and then I took his class. He advised me on research in India on their healthcare system because they don't have payers for the most part, so it's an actual market-based solution, and they figured out ways to provide care affordably at a very high quality at scale. It's amazing, and so I spent years working closely with Clay, and I noticed that in a lot of his seminal books, The Innovator's Dilemma and others, his historic examples of disruptions, the Japanese automakers, Sony Walkman radio, a lot of them were coming out of post-war Japan. And he had served his mission in Korea as a young man, and so he had this lens on the world. And I'm not aware of him ever explicitly discussing that. But I began to kind of develop a theory of like geographic arbitrage, where you could match certain capabilities that are developed in particular conditions, right? And it's comparative advantage of trade. If you take Econ 101, it's a similar thing, right? Those are developed kind of in. So within the U.S., Boston is a city. It's the youngest city in the United States. And there are over 100 institutions or thereabouts of higher learning in greater Boston. Everyone knows about Harvard, MIT, but you got BU, BC, Tufts, Brandeis, like a little long list.
And from a geography perspective, it's not huge. Boston is not a huge city.
That's right. Yeah. So, but it's like a
concentrated
Athens of America, right? Yeah. It's an educational mecca, and so every year you have these freshmen coming in, right? And so it's a young city filled with academic, but it's pretty self-selecting culturally for academic type work. It's a pretty nerdy city. It's the reason like a lot of the board games come out of there, right? Like it's so there's a ton of great tech. All right, take Utah, different. Right? Different. We've had our own kind of economic waves. You had multi-level marketing, right? When did that take off here? I don't know, 90s or something.
80s, 90s, yeah.
Right, 80s, 90s, and then you had kind of the enterprise
direct selling,
summer sales stuff, right?
Phone sales,
industrious. I would say industrious would be a good word for
not creating their own products, but marketing and selling other people's products is a
and even like the enterprise SaaS wave, right? Which sort of took off like when I was at BYU from 05 to 09, and I feel like Qualtrics was kind of starting to spread its little wings at that time, right? And you saw this wave of enterprise SaaS companies have been very successful, but the basis of their success really is Sales.
Yeah.
We have a deep bench of
It's
sales
that
talent.
execution piece, right? It's like you've got a great idea, you've got a great vision, you've got a great product.
Yeah.
Take it to market.
Let's take it to market. How do we execute on this?
So that was exactly the insight. Carson was like, gosh, how awesome would it be
Yeah.
to partner, Utah sales bench talent with Boston Tech bench talent, right? And like, that's
I think it's happening.
yeah.
In some ways it's happening. We see it like where we sit.
Yeah.
We have such a unique talent pool. And if we can get like a client or a prospect on site, immediately they're like, it's a done deal because they see our talent and the caliber of agent that we have and the caliber of people that we hire. And while they're not, gut checking for a cheetah CEO, they are looking for high caliber individuals to represent their brands and to execute on
Hopefully
their
they're
visions.
the cheetah CEO.
Exactly.
And then the thing is, game recognizes game.
Yep.
Right? Like, so hopefully they're like, all right, these are my people. What was the stat you shared with me? It was like, you guys are 4 times as good as overseas and twice as good as like Southeast call centers, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, we'll outperform we'll outperform other internal centers 4 to 7x. We'll outperform offshore centers 10x.
Yeah, I could have a company send me their 30-day aged leads and we'll convert as well as like their live leads.
Yeah,
it's just what we do.
Live leads are coming in, going to their salespeople, and whatever their conversion rate is, we'll pull that same conversion rate out of their old data.
Yeah.
And then they're like, wow, how are you doing that? Because those are our tired, exhausted, unconverted records. But, that's one of the things, part of the story that I tell with Squeeze is that, people will ask, well, you don't work with many companies around here. Or they'll ask us, like the Utah Jazz are like, well, we want you to advertise at our games and things like that. I'm like, well, our customers aren't there. Our customers are in Texas and California and Florida and New York and, all over the country. And,
but leveraging some of our comparative advantages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We bring those opportunities, those jobs here, and we're performing that work here instead of those areas and locations. And because we have good talent here, and we have great people, and that's definitely part of our success and part of our story, what we do, and why we outperform everybody so well. In addition to other things, we have some specialized knowledge and things and experience with different verticals, and universally applies to sales in general, no matter what the vertical is. But
you've seen an uptick recently in your healthcare.
Yeah, that's what I was
pipeline,
about.
Right?
That's what I was about to say. We're really confident that with not just the need to create a great patient experience, but the liability and the security concerns, we're confident that our healthcare business is going to continue to grow. We've doubled our healthcare business in the last year, and that will certainly continue because there's a lot of these companies that have such an amazing product, but they need marketers and they need salespeople, and that's where we can really shine. So we're hopeful that these companies that are looking for that consumer direct strategy will utilize us for that because we're a great machine for it.
Patient acquisition is in many ways the real challenge.
Yep.
It's one thing to get a contract with a payer. It's not easy, but that's only the first mountain you have to climb. Once you have the contract, guess how much activation or engagement work they're going to do for you?
0. Yeah.
It's close to 0.
Good luck.
Right?
Here's the list.
There's the list, right? And so that's already a huge accomplishment to get a contract of that sort. But you used to be the early digital health offerings, think Livongo or Amada for diabetes, right? It came out. These are companies that came out, 15 years ago maybe. And they used to enter into PM contracts per member per month. So that contract that, sleeved out 5,000 members with diabetes, here you go. And we'll pay you per member per month out of the gate. Just go manage. That's changed. Like there really aren't contracts. They've added a letter, which is E, per engaged member per month. And it's up to you,
encounters and
provider, to engage and activate, and that's the hard part. And patients are, and one of the challenges is the patients that are likely to benefit the most. may be among the least likely to engage with you.
Yeah. Or,
Right?
or difficult to service.
Or difficult to
Rural
service, right?
markets. Yeah.
Yep.
So the ability to figure that out and meet folks where they are and find ways to activate and engage is really, really critical. So I think you sit honestly at the nexus of that's the real nut to crack.
Yep.
Sooner or later.
Yep. And I'm excited about that. Where I think for Squeeze, the next iteration of this is, a lot of these companies, they're trying to crack this nut, and I think we're a really good lever and machine for doing that. But I think for us to help create an infrastructure where we can help manage some of that provider network and some of the availability network and some of the coverage issues that are difficult to manage, where like Open Loop is doing that for physicians. Our next step could be building something like that for these care providers to help give them infrastructure to leverage these member lists and these amazing services to provide real economic and health benefit to these
Engaged
patients.
members,
And by the way, that health benefit will yield economic benefit for the country, for the communities that they're in. Like there's plenty of studies that talk about the importance of health, mental, physical, you name it, and the impact that it has on the economy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, I, just sort of in summary and closing, I don't know if you have any parting thoughts or thoughts that you want to share that we didn't get to, but it's been amazing to have you here with us, Austin, and fascinating to talk about healthcare and customer engagement, patient engagement within that space and all that you're doing, investing in those healthcare industries that are just emerging and really flourishing right now. And congratulations to you for all the success you've had.
Thank you.
Open Loop and Trumi and the other ventures that you're working on too. So
thanks very much. No, it's been a pleasure. It's always fun to kind of step back and reflect on what it is we do and why. Especially, I think the opportunities to elevate health are really remarkable and exciting. Depending on where you sit in the industry, it's either really exciting or somewhat painful, right? But we're seeing a lot of change, a lot of transition, a lot of outpatientization, a lot of decentralization, a lot of cost reduction. But I think in some ways, depending on your condition and where you live and so on, there's never been a better time, right, to I don't know, be a patient. I mean, we're all patients, right? Health and sickness affects us all.
If it hasn't, it will.
But it's pretty exciting with the longevity things and whatnot that's coming out. So thanks for having me in. It's been fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You've been watching the Juice Consumer Direct podcast. Thanks so much for watching.
Yeah, if you have questions or comments, please leave them below and we'll make sure to get to them.
Thanks.